Good afternoon, councillors and staff. Welcome to this meeting of Glamorgan Spring Bay Council at 2:04 on the 28th of March. Glamorgan Spring Bay Council acknowledges the traditional owners of our region and recognises their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. All councillors are present. There are no apologies, obviously. At 1.4, agenda item 1.4 is in attendance. In attendance today, we have the General Manager, Greg Ingham. Welcome back from holidays, Mr. General Manager. The Director of Works and Infrastructure, Mr. Peter Porch. Director of Planning and Development, Mr. Alex Woodward. The Director of Corporate and Community, Mr. Les Blaine. Planner, Mr. James Bonner. And our Executive Officer, Mrs. Jasmine Kerr. And at this particular juncture, I would like to thank Mr. Porch for the work he undertook as acting General Manager during the General Manager's leave. So thank you for the work you did. General Manager, are there any late reports?
There is one, Madam Mayor. So item 8.8. Limited extension of financial delegation for the General Manager.
Thank you very much. We'll deal with that one when we get to it. Thank you. Declaration of interest or conflict. I request order. Sorry.
We need to have that accepted onto the agenda.
Oh, we probably do. You've probably got a very good point, Councillor Woods.
You.
Thank you. I'll accept a motion.
I'll move a motion that late agenda report 8.8 be accepted to this agenda.
Do I have a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Woods. Declaration of interest or conflict. The elected members to indicate whether they have any interest personally or via a close associate as defined in section 49 of the Local Government Act 1993, or 2, any conflict as described in Council's Code of Conduct for councillors in any item included in this agenda. Councillor McQueenie.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I like to declare an interest in 8.6, which is request for event support.
Councillor McQueenie, I'm going to have to ask you to speak up. I'm sorry.
Right. No, that's fine. I'd like to declare an interest in 8.6, which is a request for event support for the Echo Festival in so much as I'm attending.
Thank you. And you'll leave the chamber when it comes. Thank you. Confirmation of minutes is agenda item 2. 2.1 is the ordinary meeting of council. There is a recommendation on page 6. Councillor Young.
I move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held 28 February at 2 p.m. be confirmed as a true and correct record.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Woods, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 2.2 is the date and purpose of workshops. Tuesday, the 14th of March. There is a recommendation on page 7. Councillor McQueenie.
Motion that the council notes the information.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. Thank you. Agenda item 3 is public question time. I note there were no questions on notice. General Manager, I believe there is a question without notice.
Correct, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Would you like me to read that out?
Please, I would.
Okay, so the question is from Mr. Peter Rook, and it relates to Dolphin Sands and the subdivision clause in the special purpose zone. Has the GSBC, has council considered the following should it be successful in the appeal? So it's more of a leading question, I suppose, in that sense. And Mr. Rook lists 9 statements or points. Number 1, the existing law says can be divided as per current restrictions. I'm reading verbatim here. Number 2, They accepted a paid application. Number 3, denied the application without reason. This has cost ratepayers at least $30,000 to date. 4, advice prior to purchase was correctly given before purchase when was the reason I purchased, i.e. that it can be subdivided. 5, the cost to date with our appeal. 6, the emotional stress and financial loss should the applicants fail after doing something legal. 7, the significant financial loss to landowners in the millions of dollars plus cost. 8, financial hardship to ratepayers. And 9, turning Dolphin Sands into a backwater. The response, the written response to Mr. Rook's question and statements. I haven't got the latest one yet. I am sorry.
Yes.
That's the latest one. Council considered the following should be successful in their appeal. That was his overall question. Points 1 to 9 that Mr. Rook makes after that are statements in relation to that question. The appeal is currently being heard through the Tasmanian Civil and Administrative Tribunal, and as such, council is unable to comment on this matter whilst it is being heard. In regards to the amendment, there is an item on today's agenda, council agenda, and this will be discussed by council at that time.
Thank you. Thank you, General Manager. 3.3, agenda item 3.3 is responses to previous questions. There was a question from Mr. Patrick Gadd at the 28th of February meeting, and the acting General Manager, Mr. Porch, has provided a response in the agenda. Agenda item 4 is the Planning Authority section. A motion to move to Planning Authority. Deputy Mayor.
The council now acts as a planning authority at 210.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Churchill, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 4.1 is draft amendment AM 2023-01. It's rezoning of 155 Ribbon Road, Orford, and a 90-lot subdivision. There is a recommendation on page 17. Deputy Mayor, thank you.
I'll move that the planning authority, A, pursuant to section 38 of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993, support the request for amendment AM 2023-01 to rezone 155 Ribbon Road, Orford, ID 2775 205, CT 149641-2 from future urban to general residential, and B, pursuant to section 40F of the Land Use Planning Acts and Approval Act 1993, certifies that AM 2023-01 meets the LPS criteria, and C, instructs that adjoining property owners and occupiers must be notified of the draft planning scheme amendment and proposed subdivision, and D, pursuant to section 57 and 40Y of the Land Use Plannings and Approval Acts 1993 and the Tasmanian Planning Scheme, Glamorgan Spring Bay, the subdivision under AM 2023-01 at 155 Ribbon Road,
Should be Orford.
Orford,
Yes.
CT 149641-2 for a 90-lot residential subdivision, and associated works and infrastructure be approved with the following conditions, and those conditions are available from 1 through to 46.
Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Edwards, thank you. Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I'll reserve.
Reserve the closing?
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Speaker for the motion, the speaker against the motion. Councillor Churchill?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I will speak against the motion. I believe that this, the increase in intensity of this development, for this zoning rather, is going to allow for risks and longer term problems and issues in terms of stormwater and potential flooding. I don't think that it is appropriate to have an increase in intensity by having this rezoned from future urban to general residential. That's really the summary of my major concerns around this development. And if we have a look at it, the size of most of these blocks, the allotments are from, I think it's around 470 metres to over 1,000 metres, but it's quite clear. I think it's quite clear. I stand corrected by the planner that the majority of these lots would be in the smaller area, would be closer to the 470 than the larger lots. Would that be correct, if I may ask through you?
Mr. Bonner, do you?
Yes, that'd be correct, Councillor Church.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Councillor Woods, then Councillor
Yes.
McQueenie.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I'm not against development, but what I have concerns, and it's ad nauseum coming from me, is water, whether it be stormwater and access to water. This is 90 more lots, and in our attachments there is the TasWater submission to Planning Authority notice with regards to TasWater, and they have said here that TasWater does not object to the draft amendment to planning scheme and has no formal comments for the Tasmanian Planning Commission in relation to the matter, and does not require to be notified nor attend any subsequent hearings. This, and it goes on to say not much at all about how much water we have. Are we going to be, is TasWater going to be able to facilitate another 90 lots of buildings when we have the droughts that we got? And this again, councillors, it's ad nauseum for me in regards to that. It's not being against it, but future protecting the people that are actually going to be buying that and the people that are actually living here in regards to water. And, you know, Prosser River Dam has had no infrastructure improvements since its inception over 50 years ago, and we keep building more houses. So that is my real concern with regards to that. I won't be supporting this today. Thank you.
Councillor McQueenie, then Councillor Young.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I also have concerns about the density of these, particularly the density on the right-hand side of what we're seeing on page 8, which is 14 or 15 small blocks behind East Shelley Road, which is already flooding in areas, even with the mapping of some of the locations. It's unclear to me too what the impact will be, because it seemed to suggest some water flow to the further to the east, which is another line where there was significant flooding and SES called around houses affected this last year. So I too have concerns about this in its current state. Like Councillor Woods, I'm not averse to development, but I'm not sure that this demonstrates that while it might improve in some ways, it doesn't solve flooding as per page 200.
Thank you. Councillor Young.
Madam Mayor, as you know, I'm interested in the question of housing for self-placed people, as Premier Palaszczuk calls them, or those people that haven't got a home, as I call it. And I'm in favour of development that enables the building of houses for everyone, because the more houses we have, the less the pressure is on rental accommodation and on our tourist businesses that need to bring staff in. But what worries me about this particular development, the increased density, it's a relatively level area of land. It does slope down towards the ocean. It comes in behind, I think it's West Shelley Beach, one of the Shelley Beach, East Shelley Beach, is it? Comes in behind East Shelley Beach. There have been efforts of flooding. I know a gentleman that lives in East Shelley Beach that had floodwaters going across the vacant lot, which is owned by council next to him. And the stormwater worries me. Now, I've been assured that it should be okay, but I've had a place on the East Coast for 45 years, and twice of recent times the water's come into my bedroom. Once it's come into the sunroom and into another bedroom. And I'm alert to the increasing extremes of weather that seem to affect our community. And when combined with some of the items further on in this agenda, namely the auditors report.
Councillor Young, could I please ask you to deal with the matter at hand?
All right, I'll deal
I'm
with it
sorry.
then. Oh, well,
We can't introduce different
well, it's
information
not
into
different,
an agenda.
but I abide by your ruling. We're short of stormwater upgrade money. We haven't got it. And we don't look like getting it. And when you look at the conditions imposed on this development, at page 21 on the agenda, item 30, it says the developer must provide piped minor stormwater drainage system designed to comply with all the following, to be able to accommodate storm with an average recurrence interval of 20 years when the land is serviced by the systems fully developed. And then, and B, stormwater runoff be no greater than the existing runoff, or any increase can be accommodated within existing or upgraded public stormwater infrastructure. Because of the increased density, there's a greater percentage of hard surface on the land, and the stormwater runoff will increase per square metre. Just across the road on the northern side, there's not on the uphill side, I should say, there is the sewage works, and there are a whole series of trees planted there in an attempt to try and reduce the water table. And I just think it's too dense for this area. And if it was of lesser density, I'd probably agree to it, but I can't at this density. I'm sorry.
Councillor Edwards.
I agree with Councillor Wood's concerns about the dam on the Prosser, but that is out of our remit. It's Taswater's issue, not ours. So, and nobody's fought more than me on that front. When we couldn't develop a block here 10 years ago, and suddenly they've been developed everywhere, and no more water has turned up, even though the general manager tells me that Taswater tells us there's plenty of water, there's no problem. Experience doesn't show that. But that said, that's not our remit, that's Taswater's. Going on from Councillor Young's point on point 30, point 31 says, the developer must provide a major stormwater drainage system designed to accommodate a storm with a 100-year recurrence. So it sort of, if we're going to knock this land, this future development land on the head, when it's an infill job, it's been recommended by, as I can see, the recommendations seem to be to pass. It seems to be a given to me We're crying out for more accommodation. The stormwater situation, even going back to the points that Councillor Young brought out, that stormwater runoff will be no greater than pre-existing runoff, or any increase can be accommodated with an existing or upgraded public stormwater infrastructure. So it could be no worse than it is now. Not counting, the next line says they've got to improve it to a 100-year flood. So I don't understand the issue there. We need houses, we need accommodation, we need development. So if we continue with the approach of it might get wet or it might get dry, well, we may as well just close down the planning department.
Councillor Luck, do you have anything to say?
Yes, I do. The flood mapping and the hydrology survey that was done is probably the most extensive that I've seen. The whole catchment was 253 hectares. All of that volume of water was calculated and flown through. My only concern is that parts of some of the blocks are subject to a 30 centimetre maximum flood height. And the building code says that we must be 30 centimetres above the maximum height. So as long as when it comes to the building approvals, they accommodate a 60 centimetre high above natural ground, and the buyers are aware of the floodplain. As long as it's buyer beware, I don't have an issue.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Bonner or Mr. Woodward, do you wish to make any comment on anything that's been said by the councillors before? Any matter that may have been raised that you can?
Through you, Mayor. Yeah, I'll just make a clarification on Councillor Churchill's previous question about the lot sizes. I probably didn't answer that very clearly. There's a variety of lot sizes in the proposed subdivision. Under the general residential zone, the minimum lot size under the acceptable solution is 450 metres squared. These lots are well above that minimum lot size. And they do have a variety of, as I said, a variety of sizes. So I just thought I'd provide a bit of clarification. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bonner. Before, if I may, Councillor Woods, before I ask the Deputy Mayor to close debate, I'm happy for you to speak again. But if I could just mention, I had, like councillors that have said, I had significant concerns around the stormwater as well. But they appear to have been addressed in the conditions in that's been recommended. On the other side of this, for years, this council has wanted infill across all our towns. We have a large number of vacant lots in Orford, for example, that are inside the town boundary that could be developed. And this seems to be one of those at the moment. So with the conditions, if the conditions are strictly adhered to, I don't see any reason not to support this particular matter. Councillor Woods, yes, please.
If I may, thank you. Can any of the planners answer the questions that I've always asked with regards to Taswater? You know, like they have their own. I know they have their own assessments and all that sort of stuff, but I just can't get my head around the amount of blocks we've got with little to no improvements in water storage.
Sure. Mr. Porch, Mr. Bonner or Mr. Woodward, or all three of you gentlemen, if you have a comment.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Unfortunately not. We don't have the data or the capacity and all of that information on Taswater's assets. That's why there's a statutory referral to them as the governing body and the body that looks after all of their assets, so they know what the ability is. But we don't have that information to make that decision.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, would you like to close debate?
Yeah, thank you. Just with regards to the Taswater issue, I suspect if Taswater decide they can't supply water, there won't be a subdivision. So as Councillor Edwards said, that will be their remit and they will answer all those questions. I've got every confidence in our officers and our engineers to make sure the conditions that are applied to this subdivision will be adhered to. To the lot size, I think, and the density, I think this is probably a pretty good subdivision really, because there's a variety of sizes. It addresses a couple of issues for us. Is it releases more land, which will do a couple of things. It'll keep a little bit of pressure on the rising prices we've got at the moment, which then potentially can allow people to actually get themselves some land and hopefully build a house on it. The smaller lots will allow that even further because they potentially will be costing a little bit less. And it potentially makes the subdivision economically viable for the developer. So yeah, it's got my full support.
Thank you. At this point, I will put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Edwards, Councillor Luck,
Reluctantly.
Deputy Mayor Simons, Councillor Woods, those against, Councillor Churchill, Councillor Young and Councillor McQueenie. The motion is carried 5-3. Thank you. Agenda item 4.2 is the draft amendment AM 2022-02, the subdivision of additional lots under the Dolphin Sands particular purpose zone. Do I have a motion? Councillor Woods, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move that we defer this agenda item for 4.2 draft amendment AM 2022-02 until the April meeting for clarification on a number of matters in question.
Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor, thank you. Councillor Woods, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Only to say that it's just been quite an arduous read, and we need a little bit more.
Yep.
I think we do, in all fairness to all parties around the table, we do need a little bit more clarification with regards to this. And I might add that it's it's a huge, big issue for one little word. So, but that's what.
Can't help but agree with you, Councillor Woods. Are there any other speakers or shall I put the motion?
Just that Councillor Woods has my full support.
All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. That brings our planning session to a close. Do I have a motion? Councillor Woods.
Thank you. I'll move that we move out of council no longer acts as a planning authority at 2:31 p.m.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Churchill, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 5.1 is the financial reports for the end of the period 28th of February 2023. There is a recommendation on page 34. Do I have a motion? Councillor Churchill.
I move that council receives and notes the financial reports as attached to this report for the period ended February 2023.
Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Luck, thank you. Councillor Churchill, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, just briefly. It's everything that I can find on there seems to fit and work well for me. It is good to see there that we've received the settlement proceeds from Spencer Street. So that's obviously been now accounted for. Yeah, no further comment from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments in relation to the financial reports? Nothing further. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 6 is the section 24 committee minutes. 6.1 is the Coles Bay Community Hall. There is a recommendation on page 38. Councillor Churchill, thank you.
I move the minutes of the Coles Bay Community Hall Committee meeting held on the 8th of March 2023 be received and noted.
Thank you. Councillor Churchill, seconded. Councillor Young, thank you. Any questions or comments on the minutes? the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda 6.2 is Marine Infrastructure Committee meetings. There is a minutes. There is a recommendation on page 47. Have a motion. Councillor Woods, thank you.
So I'll move that the minutes of the Marine Infrastructure Committee held on the 7th of March 2023 be received and noted.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Edwards, thank you. Are there any questions or comments?
Madam Mayor, I thought I'd tagged it, but I haven't. Somewhere in these minutes, there is a comment that there was a berth available and the second last person on the waiting list, and there were 40 on the waiting list, took up the berth. That leads me to worry, maybe, and I hope unjustifiably, that the 37 people on the waiting list in front of that person really are on the waiting list for some purpose other than getting a berth. But now, maybe some people have ocean liners and they need a bigger berth, or and this particular berth was only suitable for a dinghy. There are those sorts of matters to be considered. But if the concern that I have nagging at the back of me is correct, it means that we are at the limit of available people to take up a berth, and if we don't watch out, we'll end up with an empty berth. That was one of the concerns I had about it. And on page 40, there is a recommendation to council that the marina fees do not increase for the 23-24 year. And it was passed unanimously. It's a matter that when read with the question of how far down the list we had to go to get a berth, it's a warning sign that I think we ought to bear in mind. And Mr. O'Leary's updating on the parking. There is some concern in the community that those that do have a berth can't park when they want to load and unload their vessel, and that most of the parks seem to be occupied by people going to Maria, some for 3 or 4 days, leaving their cars there for that period of time. If we are going to keep our marina operating, we need the income, and the minor repairs that do occur are such that we need that income. And for the odd case when someone goes into a wharf, because you never seem to know who it is, or if people did see it, they seem to forget and don't make a note anywhere. We have to pay for those things. It worries me because the provision of parking for those that are going to use the berth, they need to have ease of access to the berth. Otherwise, the tendency will be, especially for those that don't live in the municipality, to go elsewhere, and the thing will become a burden around our neck. I think we've done a good job done by the committee, and I'm told that there is a gravelled area at the far end of the car park that of this council, that the far end of the berth where cars can park. Let's hope that that park is not occupied mainly by those spending a lot of time at Maria, because we provide the services for Maria and we get no revenue for it. That's the only comment I have to make.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Can I just address a couple of them? And you did in fact allude to one, the parking. I know there's been steps taken to improve the parking there. In terms of the berth and the list, the waiting list, I believe, I'm assuming it's the same as has been for many, many years. If you want to go onto that waiting list, you actually have to pay a deposit on a berth. That used to be the situation quite a number of years ago. It may have changed. Okay, I accept that. In terms of the recommendation about not increasing that thing, I had the privilege of sitting in on that particular marine infrastructure meeting, and I can tell you that there was considerable debate around the table from the members. And finally, I'd like to congratulate Councillor Woods on accepting the role of chair of the
Well,
Marine
that's something
Infrastructure
outstanding.
Committee. And thank you for that.
Outstanding job.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Woods. We didn't have to twist your arm too much, but it's very much appreciated that you've taken that role on.
Thank you.
So if there's no other comments in relation to the minutes, Councillor Churchill, sorry.
That's all right. It's just occurred to me while this discussion's been going on that Parks has in fact spent a lot of money on the island to encourage further visitation, and they've seriously neglected allocating money for the infrastructure here at the wharf, which is quite obviously part of their operation. And they put pressure on council over a number of years for us to do that work. In fact, at one stage, I think we thought we had a grant of something like 250,000 to do it. That fell through. Nothing further's been done. So that parking situation, I feel, should be at least partially or entirely paid for by Parks.
I think we have made the comment in the past in various forums that we need to continue to have discussions with the state government around supporting us for those iconic pieces of our municipality that we do have a number of visitors to. So I think it's a very valid point you've made, Councillor Churchill. There's no other comment. Sorry, Councillor Edwards.
I'd just like to say that I think it's excellent what the council have done in relatively cheaply making that additional parking area. They've done it at low cost. It's an area where a number of parks are going to be sectioned off for the fishermen and for the berth holders. And I think it was a quick, low cost. I think Mr. O'Leary and the council staff have done an excellent job in not fixing, but making better the sticky situation. And as the numbers get to number 38, I think it's evident because we are dearer than some berths in Prince of Wales Bay for the same size boats. And people, I think, are hanging off. Maybe if the recommendation of no more increases had come up before the berth became available, it may have gone a little earlier. I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see if the recommendation is accepted, what happens next year. Because as Councillor Young said, we don't want to have a heap of empty berths.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. That's been a particularly worthwhile discussion in relation to the Marine Infrastructure Committee minutes. So thank you, everybody, for that. If there's nothing further, I will put the motion. Sorry, Councillor Luck.
Just to tie in with that, recently on Friday last week, there were 4 councillors attended a community workshop in Coles Bay.
I'm sorry, no, it's
marine
a
infrastructure.
separate matter.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Those against? No one against? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 6.3 is the Tribana Community Hall Committee minutes. There is a recommendation on page 54. Councillor Woods, thank you.
Thank you. I'll move that. Sorry. Lost it. The minutes of the Tribana Community Hall dated 7th of February 2023 be received and noted.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Young, thank you. Any questions or comments? Councillor McCraney?
Just one question, Mayor, and I may have missed it, but the supported installation of a ballet bar in the hall, how is that funded? how will is that being progressed?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Sorry, just on the question of Sue Nettelfold's request for the ballet bars in the
Oh, yes.
hall,
Yeah.
is that being progressed and funded, or how will that move forward?
General Manager, can you?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. So a request, what Councillor McQueenie is referring to there is a request that came through from a community about installation of ballet bars on the side walls of internal of the hall to accommodate ballet lessons and possibly some other yoga type activities. So we've liaised with that person and said we would need to know, council would need, as the building owner, as the facility owner, would need to know some more detail. It was a bit scant in terms of what was required. And so that's where it's at. We haven't said no, but we do need to ascertain what we're looking at. Can the walls support ballet bars for a start? And how it's going to be funded.
Yep. Thank you.
Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question here. There's a comment on page 50 or page 3 of the minutes that the committee was committee members to contact council as to why there are no hall hire fees for the 2022-23 fees and charges scheduled from schedule form council from council. I reckon that would be. Has council been contacted with regards to that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that would be a question I'd have to take up with the building manager.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. And just a question, it's really good to see that the Section 24 committees are seeming to be meeting again now, so that we, like we've had our little hiatus of COVID and we're back on track with our Section 24 committees.
Councillor Young.
Madam Mayor, you'll note on page 49, page 2 of the minutes, new business, refundable deposit for cleaning to be on next agenda. There's a problem with some of the users of the hall not cleaning after they go, and that cost is a burden that the committee is trying to eliminate. And the committee feels that the hall is available for use, but no one seems to know about it much. And if we have a hall there that's carefully maintained in reasonably good condition, with a bit of a kitchen and toilet and storage area, etc., we ought to make use of it. And there will be consideration by the Section 24 committee about publicising the fact that the hall is available.
Thank you. Councillor Young, I note that you are councillor representative on there. You might like to mention to the minute secretary, I'm guessing you met at 11:05 a.m, not p.m. on the 7th of February.
I don't think I left 11:05 anyway. Yeah,
Maybe things kicked on.
Yeah,
after you
so
left.
it was an exciting meeting, but it wouldn't have kept me there that long.
Things kicked on.
Thank you, Councillor Young, for those comments. If there's nothing further, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. We move on to agenda item 7.1, the Director of Works and Infrastructure, Mr. Porch's report. There is a recommendation on page 59, I believe. Deputy Mayor, thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'll move that council notes the information.
Seconder, please. Councillor Churchill, thank you. Are there any questions or comments in relation to Mr. Porch's report, Deputy Mayor?
Just for me, that it's nice to see it looks like there's a fair bit of road work going on and ceilings, and now that the weather's dried up, it's let everyone get a chance to get at it. So that's good to see.
Good. Councillor Churchill?
Yeah, and just on that, the somewhere in the report, it's been stated that the quality of that work seems to be better than it's been in the past, which is really positive. But I had one small question there, the top of page 57, unplanned green waste fire at Orford Transfer Station. What was, who lit it?
Indeed, an unplanned fire. Yes, we were summoned to the site at about 6 o'clock or thereabouts, 6 in the evening on that date, and fires were there in attendance, and it had been lit. We have a process whereby we advise TAS Fire when it's getting to a stage where it needs burning off, and they attend when they're able and liaise with them. But within the fortnight or so, since advising, they hadn't had opportunity with particularly hot weather, and it appears as though it's deliberately lit, but it's very difficult to prove.
A question of Mr. Porch. There used to be a contractor, Mr. Laredo, who manned the waste centre. He has been ill of recent times and may not return, from what I can gather. Is the operation of the tip still on a contract basis, or is it run now by council employees?
Through you, Madam Mayor, for the most part, it's we have contract employees for that particular transfer station. Others we use casual labour generally, but that particular one is mostly by contract labour. Occasionally, we have to backfill when they're not available for one reason or another.
Thank you.
Councillor Edwards?
Just on the fire, I will say, having heaped up green waste a lot over my life, at times they will spontaneously combust as they heat up. And I've had heaps which have been dead for 4 months, and then boom, it's alight. And I know for a fact I didn't set it on fire. And so that it does happen. Also, I was wondering if there's any update on the Coles Bay walking track tenders and the Bicheno Triangle being reviewed.
Certainly the tenders have closed, and we're working through that process now. There'll be a report come to the next council meeting for those.
Right, so we have had some responses.
Yes, we have.
Good, good.
Thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Porch? Nothing further. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. And item 7.2 is the Marine Manager Building and Marine Infrastructure, Mr. O'Leary's report. There is a recommendation on page 64. Deputy Mayor, thank you.
I'll move the council notes the information.
Seconder, please. Councillor Edwards, thank you. Comments or questions? Councillor Luck, I am aware that you have a question around parking at the Coles Bay boat ramp and jetty. Would you, or a comment in relation to it?
And in part, it ties in with the overnight leaving of vehicles at Tribana from Maroa Island. The same issue was reported at Coles Bay in a meeting up there where people are parking in the township and they park outside the shops because they're street lights, and then they go to Shooting Island on the ferry and stay there for 3 days. So that issue was raised by the community. More importantly was the fact that there's a freezer truck that's running a commercial operation unloading the commercial fishing boats and is parking at 90 degrees across 3 out of the 4 loading ramps in the public jetty for up to 2 hours at a time. It has a tailgate loader on it, a hydraulic lift loader on the back, so that the boats can come straight out of the water, park alongside, put their fish in. There's already been one public fight up there. That's been reported. There will be more. And we're just wondering whether the council officers, so Mr. O'Leary, could come up with another solution, perhaps using the long-term overflow car parking spot for unloading boats. Or do we have jurisdiction being a public wharf? Is it a commercial wharf? Is it a public wharf? Does MAST have a say in it? We have no one to police the parking. So do we have a parking strategy for Glamorgan Spring Bay?
And I think the short answer is that parking at all our wharves is a real issue. but I'm quite comfortable that I'm sure that the general manager will take those comments on board and we'll have some investigation done around particularly those issues. But it might just be that it's an education process for the boat owners in the area, General Manager. Would that be reasonable?
We hope, Madam Mayor, that was going to be the case when council invested a fair bit of money in the development of the boat parking area at the top, on the top of the hill by the community hall. And what that proved to be was a bit of a white elephant, in that unless it's an exceptionally busy day and someone is forced to go up there because there's literally no space down the bottom, people don't use it. It's deemed to be, and am I talking to the locals, it's deemed to be too far and too much of an effort for the boaties to park up there, unload and walk down. So the thing with the Coles Bay site in particular is it's just topography wise, and it has everything going. There is just no ways you can expand that area. And so with the competing interest, I do, Councillor Luck, I would like to follow up about the commercial fishing truck.
Yes.
So maybe I'll come and see you and get some details. But with all the competing interests in that little small space, it is a real challenge to manage. But certainly if someone is doing something illegal, wrong, and we can take action, or the police can take action, absolutely, we will follow that up. And in terms of council being able to monitor something that's under its responsibility, well, again, resource, to have someone there at any point in time, just not going to happen. We don't have the resources. Yeah.
And the final question was, from the Coles Bay long-term trailer parking spot next to the hall, does anyone know whether the council holds any walking right-of-ways down to the Freycinet Cruises jetty down below, so that we could encourage the overflow of car parks on the Freycinet Cruises to park just up the top and walk the 400 metres down the hill? But I don't know whether council owns any right-of-way accesses.
Yeah, no, I don't know about that, Councillor Luck. I could find out. I don't know whether, again, a little bit like the boaties, whether people are going to want to lug their belongings.
Yeah.
400 metres, 500 metres is questionable when they can park right outside the wharf.
Yeah, the problem there is that there's not a sufficient capacity. So now they're walking along where the new walking track's going to be on Jetty Road. They're already parking all the way along to there. So we're going to have a shared zone with overflow car parking from the Freycinet Cruises. And the problem being the Freycinet Cruises has put a bigger boat on. So with that comes more visitors, comes more cars. So, anyway, that's enough said.
Thank you, Councillor Luck. And now the General Manager and senior staff are aware of the issue now. There will be, I'm sure they will make some investigation or assessment around the questions you've raised. Are there any other questions? Councillor Young.
Madam Mayor, on page 61, Swansea elevated boat ramp. That matter also was partly dealt with in the structure. Not the end, whereas the earlier report, I forget the actual name of it now, at page 40, Marine Infrastructure Committee. What the point is that this sand, it says, can be quite soft, causing some vehicles to get stuck. And the words are missed off at the end of the boat ramp. And I'm told it has caused serious trouble, and that sometimes there are, because of the current movement, big holes at the end of the boat ramp where I was told at one stage a Land Rover got thoroughly immersed. What worries me is that any signs that have been put up there, I think might have been put up by Marine and Safety Tasmania. And knowing them, you probably need a magnifying glass to read them. And you'd have to have a particular degree in learning public services so you can understand what the message is. But do we have a public risk policy that covers that Swansea boat ramp, because although we have no lease on it, we seem to control it from time to time. We have an input into sand removal, and a little kid will get drowned there at some stage, and we could be on the end of a very nasty damages for negligence personal injury claim. We do need to ensure it is covered.
Thank you, Councillor Young.
Through-
General
through-
Manager.
Yes, to you, Madam Mayor. First of all, in terms of all our boat ramps that we manage under a lease arrangement, we do have the necessary liability cover, public liability cover. We must not forget in all of this that the Marine and Safety Authority is the authority. If anyone was to deem a boat ramp unsafe or not fit for public use because of safety issues, it would be them, not us. And I think the adage about, and particularly with Swansea, you're quite right, Councillor Young, it's different to the others in that we don't manage it under a lease. So we've even further removed from it. The only work we do on that ramp is minor work like seaweed removal. It gets washed up on the concrete, etc., etc. We're not involved in the sand removal. We've had no input into the design. And I think the point is made in the report too, that no matter what facility, maritime facility you have, coastal facility you have, there is an element of, there's an obligation on the user to know about tides, to know about their limitations, to know about their boat, to know about the weather. That obligation can never fall on council, certainly can never fall on mast. But to answer your question about the liability, we are covered for all of our boat ramps under our management.
And Swansea, even though we only have a bit of an input in removing some gunk.
Not
That
Swansea.
worries me, because if I was, and I used to represent infants, they have no understanding about tides. You can't expect them to have it. And if one drowns, this council, my view is, would get it in the neck. And we need insurance cover, even if it extended just a little bit. We need it in writing from the underwriter.
I'm sure. yes,
Through you, Madam Mayor, I will
General
check up on our specific wording in our insurance cover.
Thank you, General Manager.
Are there any other questions in relation to Mr. O'Leary's report? If there's nothing further, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 8 is the officer's report requiring a decision. 8.1 is the Local Government Association of Tasmania 2023 General Management Committee election. There is a recommendation on page 66. Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move that council endorses the nomination of Councillor McQueenie for the Local Government Association of Tasmania General Management Committee election.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Young, thank you. Councillor Woods, would you like to speak to the motion, or I have offered Councillor McQueenie the opportunity to speak as to her reasons why she was seeking the nomination?
Only to say that she has, Councillor McQueenie has expressed an interest in this, and if elected, I wish her all the best.
Councillor McQueenie, would you like to make any comment about the nomination and your reasons for it?
Yeah, just briefly, thanks, Mayor. I guess one thing that I wanted to say was that whilst I don't have a deep background in local government, I do have that in terms of the state and the Commonwealth, who regularly engage with the LGAT, whether how effectively are obviously issues. In terms of the actual role, which is overseeing the operational side, as I understand it, I have both the understanding from a governance perspective and management perspective. I've managed national programs, large budgets and all the rest. In terms of other skills around that, I've completed the company director's course. I've got a master's in public administration and other postgraduate qualifications that I think are relevant to the space. I note, though, that these nominations come forward from various councils within the South. So whether it goes through. And I also thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Are there any questions for councillor McQueenie? Any other comments? Councillor Young?
I'd like to thank Councillor McQueenie for agreeing to stand. She's like the other ladies in this room, dedicated and smart. And I think if we'd like to get her on, any chance we all get to talk to some of the other councillors in other councils to spook Councillor McQueenie's skills, we ought to do it.
Thank you, councillor Young. Very much, your comments are much appreciated by councillor McQueenie and the other ladies in the chamber.
What a recommend. Yeah.
That is not.
It's up for debate.
Too high.
If there are no,
Ceiling,
if there are no further comments or questions, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, those against, the motion is carried unanimously. Congratulations, councillor, on your nomination to Elgate GMC. Agenda item 8.2 is the review of the council media policy. Councillors will recall that we had a discussion around this at a workshop. There is a recommendation on page 68. Councillor McQueenie?
I move that the council adopts the updated council media policy as attached to this report item effective 28th of March 2023.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Edwards, thank you. Councillor McQueenie, would you like to speak to the motion? No, nothing. Any questions or comments in relation to the media policy? Nothing further. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried unanimously. 8.3 is the policy reform inquiry response. There is a recommendation on page 70. I note this is a letter that was sent to me from the Minister for Local Government in my role as the Mayor, alerting us to the fact that there are these two discussion papers coming out, or I believe they're currently available for comment, General Manager. That's right, isn't it? So there is a recommendation on page 70. I have a motion, please. Councillor Woods, thank you. And
I'll move that council supports these reforms and delegates the General Manager to provide a response to the effect as feedback in the recommended form.
do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Churchill. Thank you. Councillor Woods, would you like to speak to the motion?
Pretty self-explanatory. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Anything that you would, that as councillors, you would specifically like the General Manager to do within the letter that we're, or in the response that we're doing, Councillor Churchill?
No, it's nothing like that. I just think it's interesting that we're actually legislating here for good governance. That should be a given. It just seems a little bit unnecessary, but if that's the process.
Process. Yeah, that's right.
I think through you, Madam
General
Mayor,
Manager,
I
yes.
think recent happenings, if you like, or issues in Tasmanian local government have been a catalyst for this to come forward and move along a bit quicker than it probably would have happened. But I agree, it is sound. It should be the norm, and these are two steps in the right direction.
Thank you. Nothing further. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda 8.4 is a memorial seat request. Additionally, there is a recommendation on page 72. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
I'd like to move that council acknowledges the loss felt by members of the Bicheno community and approves the application for a memorial plaque and seat in the vicinity of the proposed area.
Thank
I'll
you.
second it.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, I don't really need to. I don't think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Thank you.
It'll be a very good thing to do.
Any other questions, comments? Speaking for Councillor Churchill?
I just wanted to suggest that perhaps Ms. Julia Lord's name be in that recommendation or in that motion. It just seems appropriate to me that the name be.
So insert the words for a memorial park and seat for Miss Julia Lord.
Happy.
Yes, yes,
Yep,
yes.
Madam Mayor.
It does make it a little clearer and a little more transparent. There's no doubt about that. Thank you.
More personal.
Sorry, Councillor Young.
Also more personal.
Thank you. It does indeed. Are there any other comments, Councillor Edwards?
I'd just like to say I support it wholeheartedly. I think it's a great recognition for the family and the people, and putting that aside from a more financial perspective, it's also a great win for the Shire, to the municipality, to have a seat where a seat is required. And I think it's just it's not only just honouring the person, it's a win for the public as well, who can use the facility. It's a
Absolutely. Thank you,
terrific
Councillor
thing.
Edwards. There's nothing further. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried unanimously. Agenda 8.5 is the minutes of Glamorgan Spring Bay Audit Panel, the 29th of February, sorry, the 29th of November 2022 and the 22nd of February 2023. There is a recommendation on page 74. Oh, sorry, Councillor Young, thank you.
I move that the council receives and notes the attached minutes of the Glamorgan Spring Bay Council Audit Panel meeting held on 29 November 2022 and 22 February 2023.
Thank you. Is there a seconder, please? Councillor Churchill. Councillor Young, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I do. Our audit panel do a very good job. And they are dedicated people and we need them. But there are some things that concern me generally, not about the performance of the audit panel, but the things that they highlight. I'm just trying to see if I marked the page adequately. There is a comment, and I just can't find the page at the moment. About the fact that we don't have enough money to cover the renewal of the road assets as they fall due. And it appears that we don't have enough money to cover the upgrade needed for stormwater. And having had a flood in my house twice, it's something that comes home to me strongly. The financial health of the council is very important to me. And I think it's on page 382. I don't know whether it's not quite 700 pages through, but it's substantially through. 12.2. No, General Manager, I didn't hear that comment.
I said, Councillor Young, you're stirring Councillor Edwards up.
And the importance of asset management plan, AMP it's called, one of those acronyms that you have to spend years to learn what the hell they mean. And the long-term financial management plan, the FMF dependency, all dependent, developed in the last 2 years, and thank goodness for that, and are actively working to recover the financial health of council. And this council has now hit the level of a competently run council. The senior staff, the general manager and the councillors do a first-class job. And over many years in a legal office, almost 50, you get to see who does a good job and who doesn't and the capacities. But On 12.3, the minutes noted the limited capacity in the budget to accelerate infrastructure works. In other words, to do the job. Backlog road renewal, existing budget level does not meet necessary asset management reseals targets. And that's something that we as councillors should take note of. We did have a workshop attended by the Grants Commission, State Grants Commission members, and a very interesting workshop it was too. And one of the Grants Commissioner who lives at, he told me at Shearwater, walking out the door, said that for my place in Shearwater, I pay $600 a year rates more than I would if that value place was situated down here. And I did make a comment to him that, well, perhaps this council is run better than some other councils. But the minute raises a flag to me. And what do we do about the comment that's made by this independent, well-titled, well-skilled body? We've got to address it. And if we don't address it now, it'll get worse later. And I'm not in favour of putting any rates up. I'm not in favour of increasing any berthing fees, but we could cut some expenditure. There is some expenditure that could be cut. And we're living in a time of inflation. And I just want our council to be alert to the difficulties. I don't have a solution. It's very apparent from the Grants Commission meeting that we are not going to get any extra money from the Grants Commission. Doesn't mean to say we should give up lobbying about changing the system, because it warrants changing. But this commission won't do anything. It doesn't have the power, nor I don't think is the inclination there, because it was also one of the other members of the commission that said we could put our rates up. And I don't think there's merit in paying more rates than you ought. It won't send you directly to heaven if you're going to get there. And it'll cause a lot of agony to the elderly residents here. But otherwise, I ask you to vote for the motion.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments on the audit panel minutes? Councillor Woods and then Councillor Churchill.
Okay, thank you. Look, I'm totally tongue in cheek with this one. I'll put it up front straight away. Page 381. Councillor Young has already alluded to it, but there's one word in the writings of that item 10 is theoretically. Theoretical. How do you say it?
We understand it.
Yes. The whole thing is actually, in my opinion, from the Grants Commission, a bit theoretical.
Yeah,
it's a bit like, what am I trying to say? I did have it in my head, but it's theoretical. It's just a joke, to be quite honest. Their explanations in there are, for want of a better word, disgusting.
I think if I may, before anybody else speaks, I'm very grateful to have the audit panel that we have with some very well qualified people that can perhaps provide some advice to council around this State Grants Commission. And I'm interested, if I may, Councillor Churchill, before you speak, I'm interested that there is a notation in the minutes of February meeting that our audit panel is coming to speak to council next week. Ms. Blaine? Yes, thank you. Right, thank you, Councillor Churchill, and then Councillor Edwards.
Well, I'd just like to support what you've just said about the audit panel. I think we're really fortunate to have the two external people that we have on that panel at the moment. I think we've we've struck gold there, I hope. The other thing I just wanted to say, in support of the Grants Commission and Councillor Young's comments, I think we should give them some credit. I think they have been actually seriously looking at this, and they sent their 4 senior staff here, or 3 of their board, 3 senior members of the board, and their most senior staff member here to talk to us a couple of weeks ago. And I think that should at least be acknowledged. And I think they showed some genuine concern about our issues. Probably for the first time I've really seen that. Okay, we haven't got all the answers, we haven't got the money, but I came out of that meeting with a little bit more positive vibe than perhaps some other people in the room, and I'd just like that to be acknowledged publicly. Thank you.
I think, thank you for those comments, Councillor Churchill, because I think you have been very accurate in your description of the last meeting that we had with the State Grants Commission, the ones that we've had previously, or the one we've had previously. I walked away. I had 10 questions going in and had 50 questions coming out. At least that didn't happen with this last one. So I also thank that Grants Commission for taking the time to come and visit us this time around. Councillor Edwards.
I would just like to say that if that was the best one you've been to, I pity all of you because I thought it was hideous. We had methodology which doesn't work. We know it's wrong, but we'll fix it in a decade. And we had thoughts and prayers. That's it. But the other point, I'd like to make is in the audit panel minutes there on page 382.12.8, medical practices looking for an external operator to manage as it is not a council remit. I thought I'd been told all along that we weren't actively looking for somebody else. It was an option to have someone else, not we are looking for someone else because we don't want to do it. Now, am I correct or am I wrong?
It's probably a discussion for a later time,
Well,
Councillor Edwards.
Do I vote for this with the?
Well, this is the audit panel minutes and it's what they have dealt with. So it is the minutes of the audit panel.
Through you, Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I can just make a comment. What part of the audit panel meetings is an update from the General Manager on emerging risks or existing risks or current risks, and I raised those mindful of the fact that we do. I raised those risks mindful of the fact that it is going to be recorded for public information by way of the minutes. So, in regards to the medical, for example, there is, and we're going to be talking about this later, but there is risks there that council needs to be aware of that I can't, for commercially confident reasons and other reasons, we can't record in minutes, in the audit panel minutes. I think the wording, Councillor Edwards, the wording could be a little bit different. Yes.
Yeah, that's very direct, is what that wording.
I think it's making the point that we have engaged. We have started a process a long time ago. If you go right back to the expression of interest stage, we're going back 18 months now. To look at an external provider for the governance of our medical practices in the municipality. So it's not a, and we haven't got there yet.
It said as an option, but
in relation to your comment in relation to the State Grants Commission, yes, it was difficult. There's no question about that, to visit by them. But from my perspective, I think we achieved a lot more information from that last visit than we have in the past. And whilst it may not have answered all our questions, Councillor Edwards, it was certainly, if I can use the term, a whole lot better than previous meetings we've had in terms of us providing an understanding, us providing our understanding to the State Grants Commission, and in turn the State Grants Commission providing us with information around the methodology and what they're planning on doing. So it was very informative in that respect.
Yeah, it was.
If there's no further comments or questions, sorry, Councillor McQueen.
Just very quickly,
Yes.
thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to say too, I guess, that I thought it was an encouraging meeting. I thought they demonstrated in different ways, referring to different things, that they understand the position that it's in. And I appreciate what Councillor Edwards is saying about, we also heard other messages about timeframes and things, but I was encouraged too.
I think the important thing or the important piece of information around the State Grants Commission is that apparently the methodology that is currently used around the financial assistance grants only affects 2 councils in the whole of Australia. And unfortunately, Glamorgan Spring Bay is one of them. So we'll move on. If there's nothing further, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 8.6 is a request for event support for the East Coast Harvest Odyssey. Councillor McQueenie has declared an interest and left the chamber. Deputy Mayor.
Oh, sorry, I was pointing out to.
Oh, sorry, what did I
Councillor
do?
McQueenie was leaving the
Oh.
room. I was drawing
Are
your
you putting the
attention to
motion?
that. I can put the motion.
Thank you.
I'll move that Council 1 provides a grant of $1,000 from the event budget to the festival's organising body towards festival expenses, and 2 provides wheelie bins to assist with waste management for the event.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Woods, thank you. Wish to speak to the motion?
No, it's
Deputy
just
Mayor?
a pretty solid event in the East Coast now, and it's supported reasonably well, I think, and it's spoken well of. So I think it just helps our municipality raise its profile in a different way that some of the other events we support do.
Sure. Are there any other comments in relation to it? Councillor Churchill?
I just think it's interesting how it's evolved, and we, as a council, didn't put any financial support in this one to start with, and they've shown that it can be successful. I think this is their third year of the event, and it's a real boost for Swansea.
It is, absolutely. Councillor Woods, do you wish to comment as the seconder?
No, it's all been said. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no further comments or questions? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried 7-all. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Porch. Councillor McQueenie, council unanimously supported the recommendation. Thank you. Agenda 8.7 is a community small grant application for the Landscape Recovery Foundation. Councillor Woods, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move that council approve the application for the community small grant funding of $1,000 to the Landscape Recovery Foundation.
Seconder, please. Councillor Churchill, thank you. Councillor Woods, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor.
No,
It's
Councillor
pretty
Churchill?
self-explanatory.
Yes, if I may, Mayor, I just wanted to say that I think this event to help us to physically clean up our local government area and to draw community together for such an event is a real positive outcome from this not-for-profit organisation.
Thank you. Any other speakers for the motion, against the motion? Any questions? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 8.8 is the late agenda report. It is a limited extension of financial delegation for the General Manager. On the late agenda item on your table, there is a recommendation on page 2.
I'll move that council increases the delegation limit of the General Manager from $250,000 to satisfy the Black Summer Bushfire Recovery Grant Deed requirements for Telstra invoice values or design of $269,159, for building $358,878, and finalisation of $269,159.
Thank you. Is there a seconder, please? Councillor Churchill, thank you. Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak to it?
No, thanks.
No. Any other speakers? Councillor Churchill, thank you.
I just think it's probably worth pointing out to the public that that this is actually a pass-through grant that we're effectively administering here. There's nothing difficult about it, and this is a practical process to get it paid according to the division of the stages of the grant to Telstra. Just for their information. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, councillor Churchill. If there's no further comment, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 9 is the notice of motion. There are none. There are no petitions at agenda item 10. There are no questions on notice by councillors at agenda item 11. That does bring the general meeting to a close, but before I ask for a motion to move to closed session, I'm going to use any chairperson discretion I may have, and I'm not sure I actually do have such a discretion, but I'm going to mention a community event that occurred on Saturday and in which staff from council participated. It was the Cancer Council's Relay for Life. GSBC staff, their family and friends, under the guidance of their team captain, our executive officer, Mrs. Jasmine Kerr, set out to raise $1,000. They raised in excess of $4,400, coming in second only, I believe, to Mayshaw on the leaderboard, the Mayshaw team on the leaderboard. Every member of the GSBC team had their personal reasons for participating, as well as remembering two much-loved staff members in Marie Tyrrell and Gillian Webster, who both sadly lost their lives to cancer. I was given the honour of cutting the purple ribbon to start the relay, and I was privileged to be a member of the GSBC team and walking some laps with the staff members. The Spring Bay Rotary Club, who were the organisers, had hoped to raise $20,000. At some point during the day, that target was moved out to 30, and I believe they were hoping to have raised 35,000 by the end of this week. It was truly an awe-inspiring event with cancer survivors, their carers, family and friends, community groups and school students all participating to celebrate, remember and fight back in the Relay for Life. The Spring Bay Rotary Club, their members and volunteers are to be congratulated on taking on the challenge of organising such a wonderful event. I believe it was done in 6 weeks that celebrates life, love and memories. Thank you to all who participated in the relay, were in support teams, volunteered or attended the event, but most importantly, donated so generously to make it a success. Thank you.
Yeah.
Agenda item 12 is closed, moving into closed session. If I could have a motion to move into closed session, please. Councillor Woods.
Thank you. I'll move that council moves into closed session at 3:31 p.m.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor McQueenie, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. Thank you. Councillors, that does bring our general meeting to a close. We'll wait for confirmation from Mrs. Kerr